All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sinful Gaming, and welcome to Mortal Citizens, a Cities of Sigmar podcast. I'm joined by at 9-inch Charge Dan. Hello, mate.
Hello, mate. How's it going?
Yeah, not too bad. And we are going to be chatting Settlers Gain tonight. So, for those who don't know, Settlers Gain is a brand new Cities of Sigmar subfaction that we didn't actually get told properly we were getting in Broken Realms Teclis. We just got told a battalion at the start, but we got a whole brand new city in there as well, which is awesome. And it is a Haitian city. So another realm explored in the Broken Realms series, which is cool.
Yeah, our first city from Haiti, which is great because we know the cities are everywhere, and it feels like the more these books come out, the more the background and the lore and everything to do with cities is fleshed out.
Yeah. I put up a tweet the other day. I'm like, in Broken Realms, there's no better player to be than the Cities of Sigmar player. We've got 3 brand new sub-factions. We've got a new battalion. And I would argue that all 3 sub-factions are playable at the very least, and give you options as well, like play very differently. All 3 of the ones we've got in Broken Realms are all very, very different.
Yeah, and what's really great about them, like you said, it's options. So if you're a player that plays cities, but you also love, well, in this case, it will be High Elves or Luminesce Realm Lords. This is kind of your in to that, and then the previous ones, showed more Dark Elves and things like that. It's just options, and it's really great for players of the game and lovers of the game and the background and all the different factions, because this army really lets you bring them together.
Yeah, and so I guess we'll get into that little lore tidbit. Now we're going to make sure we will talk about Settlers Gain itself, but we will refrain from talking about any Broken Realm spoilers in the video because we don't want to spoil that. It's still probably a little bit early to be spoiling it for everyone. So the lore for Settlers Gain, it's an interesting city. I really do like the idea and the theme and the lore behind it.
Well, I think you would have had a bit more of an insight into it than most, Luke, being involved in Soulbound as you were, because it was first mentioned in there, wasn't it?
Yeah, so Soulbound first mentioned it a little while ago, and so effectively it's a city where the High Elves are effectively the masters of the city, and they all sort of are trying to teach the humans, as we found out in the short stories as well, as many cities in Haitian are, where the High Elves, or Luminesce, whatever you want to call them, are effectively trying to teach and enlighten the other races of the mortal realms. And in Settlers Gain in particular, they have sort of this pyramid scheme, effectively, where at the bottom level is where everyone lives, like your just general populace and scrubs. But as you gain more knowledge and you can solve certain things and pass certain tests, you gain access to higher levels of the city and more knowledge and more enlightenment. And this can take years. And so the problem with that is that the elves based it on their own lifespans. So while you could be a Darkling Coven sorceress and you might ascend multiple levels to enlightenment eventually, because, she's an elf in herself and she lives for hundreds and hundreds of years, there's not so much a chance for humans to get there when they, potentially cap out at 100. You might only see 1 or 2 levels. There are very few humans that actually even pass a single level.
What's good about this is it's so reminiscent of what elves are like as characters. It just brings forth their character so much. Because they do just think they're better, and their lifespan and ability will mean that I guess they are, but also they're not fair.
Yeah, they're based like the way it looks is like everything's based off their perception, and they don't really think of like, oh, this human, oh, he's pretty good for a human. Like he might only be 45 years old, but they don't take the comparison ratio into account of like where a 45-year-old human is in his lifespan compared to a 796-year-old elf.
There is some stuff in the lore that says that there is some discontent in the city amongst the human population, but the rule of law is kind of absolute. So if you're not happy, you're just kicked out of the city. Basically, you're exiled.
Yeah, but they don't say you're exiled. It's like you're sort of sent on missions and and quests. You're effectively sent out to die. To go away, be quiet, and if you don't be quiet, we'll send you on somewhere particularly dangerous that you're probably not going to come back from. And if you come back, maybe then we'll have a chatter with you about going up a level.
This city for me, it really reminded me of an event that happened in the old world, where when the Great War of Chaos happened, and the Empire had to fight chaos, there was a moment where the elves were like, "Oh my goodness, we better go and teach the humans how to use magic so that they can fight back." And Teclis was the person that came and brought the magic over to the Empire and taught the humans to set up like all the colleges for the battle mages. And it's kind of like that is being replayed out in Age of Sigmar now. He's having another go with the humans.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. And of course, it's the Cities of Sigmar. What's cool about this one, I guess, is that while it does give you bonuses towards particular things, it doesn't limit you, say, like Harkuron does, which I think is Harkuron's biggest downfall, is the fact it limits you. This one, you can play as anything. So you can bring in your Darkened Covens, your Wanderers, your Collegiate Arcane, your Dispossessed, any of that. But I guess that's enough on the lore. We'll get talking about the particular subfaction allegiances, what we get from this. We'll go through all the battle traits, the artifacts, and spell lore and all of that, and we'll give a bit of a chat about that, and then we'll go on to the battalion, and then we'll sort of talk about units and stuff after that.
Cool.
So, for starters, this one, as mentioned, is a full Cities of Sigmar subfaction, so it's not like Harkuron. You don't lose anything, so we've got access to Empowered Endless Spells, Honoured Retinue, and Adjutants, and Stormkeeps. All of it. Which is all very nice. And that's also really good. So, on top of that, we've got Luminesce Tutors. So, this is effectively the Luminesce have been teaching the people. So, we get one extra artifact for either a Free Guild hero or a Collegiate Arcane hero. Now, it's worth noting that the artifacts in this sub-allegiance are only for Collegiate Arcane. So that means the only artifact available to your Free Guild hero ever is the Realm artifact you choose to be from, which has to be Haish.
Yeah, I think that's something we'll talk about a bit more, because some of the artifacts that are available to the Collegiate Arcane heroes would be really beneficial on a Free Guild hero.
Yeah. So there might be potential that maybe that's an oversight on their part, or maybe this rule, the first rule, is an oversight. But we'll play it as what it is, that at current he does only get access to that Realm of Light artifact.
I think it's reroll ones to hit on your melee weapon.
Yeah, Blade of Perfect something, I think. Something. But yeah, reroll wants to hit on, because he's got D3 damage, a Free Guild General, so it's not bad. But in addition, all Collegiate Arcane wizards that are Settlers gain get +1 to cast. Nice. All your wizards are +1 to cast. I'll take that.
Yeah, really nice.
Yeah. And the cool thing is, like, it sounds really limited because obviously there's only 4 Collegiate Arcane Wizard War Scrolls, but you've got to remember that the base Battle Mage is like 8 War Scrolls in one. So there's quite a bit of use out of that.
Yeah, and especially when we'll talk about the battalion later on, but I think that's when it kind of comes into its own.
Yeah, definitely. We've then got the Warriors of the High Districts, which is you can take 1 in 4 Luminesce. So same as Living City and all those other ones that can do this. It's 1 in 4 Luminesce, 1 in 4 Stormcast. So you will get to play whenever, for every 4 units, you could have 2 cities, 1 Luminesce, 1 Stormcast, or 1 city, 1 ally, 1 Stormcast, 1 Luminesce. So yeah, and we'll get talking about like Luminesce units to bring in a separate part of the video, but there's a lot to talk about there, I think.
I like the ratios of this as well. I always like how it's 1 in 4. I just think it suits cities really well. Like when I think about my living city and a Stormkeep, the bulk of the troops are going to be people, and then the Stormcast will come out to aid them. And I think it's going to be the same in this city where, you know, the Luminesce, although they are kind of in control, they're not the main bulk of the force. So 1 in 4 just suits the narrative. Yeah.
It also just lends its way to that little bit of narrative. I do like this as well because it really does. I'm a big fan of the 1 in 4 rule, and I personally would like it almost to see replace allies in how they work currently. I really think the 1 in 4. I think we talked about this last show. 1 in 4 it's a great rule. I think it's a lot cleaner than the current allies rules.
Yeah.
It's just nice. Everything that has 1 in 4 is always cool. But then we have the command ability, which is a free command ability that everyone gets access to so long as you're Settlers Gain. So you can use this command ability at the start of the battle shot phase. If you do so, pick one friendly Settlers Gain Luminesce Realm Lords hero. Do not take battle shock tests for friendly Free Guild or Collegiate Arcane units wholly within 18 inch of that hero. So effectively, it's a Settlers Gain Luminesce hero barking out commands. Which 18-inch or a wholly within, that's pretty decent for battle shock immunity.
Yeah, I would say so. I think that's great.
So that's a really nice thing because generally, well, the fact it's pushing towards like a free guild hero to get the extra artifact and all that sort of stuff, you might be thinking to take free guild troops. But we'll start talking, I guess, about the command traits now. So
Okay.
there's some interesting command traits in this. The first one is personal levitation. Your general can fly. That is so much better than like it sounds. One line makes a command ability amazing. A command trait, sorry. Like fly is just so good. It's so much better than I think a lot of people give it credit for.
Yeah, I think when you're thinking in the current match about screens and stuff like that, there's a lot of that going on. The ability to get over those screens, or even start from behind your own screens and then go over, because obviously you can't move through your own units. It's just great at getting you where you need to go. If you want to go onto an objective or something.
And terrain and all that sort of stuff in your way. It can be quite cool to help larger models move around.
I like just the flavor text about it. This general's learned how to harness arcane energies so that they can ascend at will to the high districts of Settlers Gain. So they're just basically fed up of walking up all the stairs. So they've taught themselves how to fly.
Yep. Right. I mean, if you could, sure. I would fly upstairs if I could. This is the other cool one, because this, I think, really lends itself well to the battalion where the battalion sort of pushes you. And that's Strategic Mastermind, which effectively gives you the adjutant rule on your general. Which I think is particularly cool, because this opens up the options, really, of taking a non-5-wound hero as your general without losing the adjutant, which I think is the most important part of that.
Yeah, and I do find, I guess, as the battle goes on, sometimes you don't know how things are going to go, and I find that sometimes my general and adjutant aren't always right next to each other. They need to move off in different directions, so it's kind of a bonus that I'd only get towards the beginning. But here, it's so long as your general's on the battlefield, then you'll get it on a 4+. So you don't need to worry about that so much.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of generals that are going to start off the table with this army either. No. And then you got Raging Outbursts. You add 1 to hit and rune rolls made for attacks by melee weapons, but subtract 1 from save rolls against melee weapons. +1 to hit and +1 to wound, it's almost worth the trade-off. Like, the fact you're getting both is decent.
There are ways to get an aura of protection for your heroes and units in this army that we might talk about later on. So if you trade off, say your save, but you've got a shrug save coming off of which one is it? The Luminarch or the Hurricane? The Luminarch.
The Luminarch, yeah.
Yeah, then it's a trade off that you would take for that, I suppose.
Yeah, there's definitely it's not bad. The fact you're getting +1 to hit and wound is the benefit. If it's just on +1 to hit or +1 to wound, it would probably be terrible. But both, it's got play with both.
The only thing I would say about it is that I don't know necessarily that your general in this army is going to be someone who is a combat character.
Yeah, that's probably the only thing. But it's nice to have a combat option in there in case that's what you want to do.
Yeah, like I said, it's options, isn't it?
Yeah. Pretty solid set of command traits, in all honesty, I think. They've all got use. I
think so as well. I think like you said, the first one and the second one probably suit this army more. Yeah. But yeah, they all have a use, and they're all pretty decent, to be honest.
Yeah, which is not common.
Yeah.
But artifacts, there's actually quite a few cool ones in here, I think, with artifacts. Now, note, this is only for Collegiate Arcane. So that means your Battle Mage on Griffin, your Battle Mage on Foot, the Celestial Battle Mage on Hurricanum, and the Light Wizard on Luminarch. So, you've got the Heartstone. So the first time the bearer is slain, before removing them from play, roll the dice on a 4+. They're not slain. And they come back with 1 wound. They're sort of phoenixing, and all extra wounds are negated.
Yeah, not too bad. I wouldn't see myself taking it for the sake of 1 wound, if I'm honest. But I can see that its uses if you really want that 1 extra turn out of your hero.
Yeah, it could also be like quite clutch almost. Like if your opponent's about to overrun you, but that hero stays an extra turn, and therefore your opponent can't get rid of him and has to fight, and you're able to bring your forces to bear because of it, it could be decent.
Yeah, it's situational, but I like it.
The next 2 are probably my favorites.
I'd like to talk about the next 2, I think. So there's the Talisman of Dispellation, which is you do not have to reduce the number of spells the bearer can attempt to cast in your hero phase if they attempt to dispel and then dispel in the same phase.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, really good, because you do see a lot of ender spells, and it is really frustrating if you don't have a lot of wizards. You do have to give up. Basically, if you've got 1 wizard, you have to give up your entire phase of spell casting to dispel that, and this negates that. So I think that is really good.
Yeah.
Can I talk about the 3rd one?
Yeah, go for it.
So I think they're linked in a way. So the 3rd one is the Silver-Plated Wand, which is the bearer can attempt to cast 1 extra spell in your hero phase.
Yeah.
So I just want to talk about those 2 in that I don't really see the advantage necessarily of the 2nd one over the 3rd one, because if you can cast 1 extra spell, then you can just lose one of those to choose to dispel and end the spell, surely.
Yeah, I think the only way I see taking both is when you've got multiple, like you're taking both for
you get an extra artifact, so you can take both of them. But if you were just going to take 1 artifact, the 3rd one is clearly better. Yeah, you're only ever taking the Talisman of Dispellation as your 2nd artifact. Yeah.
Like there's no reason to take it as your first, because like you've said, like the Silver-Plated Wands, you get that extra dispel anyway with the extra cast.
Yeah, it's not to say that the 2nd one isn't good it's definitely good on a wizard.
Yeah,
the go-to has got to be the Silver-Plated Wand.
Yeah, you're just not taking the 2nd one. The other ones are okay. Probably a bit more suited for combat heroes, maybe, some of them. So the next one is, although pick one of the bearer's melee weapons, add 2 to the attack's characteristic. Now, that's not bad on, like, a wizard, to be fair. Because all of a sudden, like, that's 3d3 damage, potentially, out of a wizard.
Yeah, I was thinking of the wizard on the Griffin, because he doesn't quite do the damage that you would like him to. And on him, it is quite good. When I first read this, I was getting really excited, because I was like, oh, you could add on to hit and wound rolls, and you can add 2 to the attacks. And then I was looking at the free guild general on Griffin, and I was like, oh, it's only Collegiate Arcane heroes.
However, like the mount gets extra attacks, gets to reroll hits with its bite because of the twin-headed Griffin rule. So you could make a battle mage on Griffin that's pretty decent out of this, which would be nice. It'd be nice to see that amazing model on the table.
Yeah.
And then you've got this one, Amulet of Haste. Roll the dice after the bearer finishes a normal move and they ran. On a 2+, they can charge. It's okay. The fact it's not guaranteed. I don't like artifacts that don't guarantee me something.
Yeah, I agree. It's not guaranteed, and also there aren't many. I mean, what kind of wizard? How mad a wizard are you going to have to be that you're going to run and charge into something?
Well, yeah, it's like the only time this would ever be good is if I could put a 2nd artifact on that free guild general on Griffin. Free guild battle mage, the Collegiate Arcane battle mage. I got there. Like that's the only time I would take that, and then I'd still rather have +2 attacks.
Yeah. Yeah, at least you're guaranteed to get your +2 attacks. You're not guaranteed to get. You might run somewhere and then you roll a 1 and then you're left out of position.
Oh, there's no might about it. You will run and then you will roll a 1 every time you want. And then we've got Stone Spirit Armor. So you roll a dice. It's a 6+ shrug normally, but in addition, you have a 5+ shrug to ignore spells. Like a 5+ just negate the effects of spells. That's not bad.
Yeah, I think for the 5+ ignore the effects of the spell on the bearer, I think is why you would take it. There are ways to get a 6+ shrug in this army. So you can't re-roll a re-roll, so you wouldn't necessarily take it for that.
And also rule of 1, remembering the FAQ now only allows you to take, GHB, FAQ, whatever, you only get 1 DPR save from now on as well.
So you probably wouldn't take it for that, but the 5+ ignore effects of a spell on the bearer in the current meta is really good.
Yeah, that could be quite important, like that 1 turn. I was talking about, I did a video talking about the ranking of Cities of Sigmar and all that sort of stuff. And people were surprised that I put Hallowed Heart so low, and I'm like, well, the amount of auto dispels out there and things that negate magic now, it's not quite as good as it once was. It can cast on a 24, but you still got Teclis who's just going to go no Soul Screen Bridge every turn to your Hallowed Heart list.
Yeah, and you've got the Knight Encounter that will say no, and you've got this. If you're casting an offensive spell on someone, that can shrug it. It's got a 1 in 3 chance. There's a lot of little ways now, which I think is right, because I can remember when Tzeentch came out, it was just for the army I took, it was basically impossible for me to dispel.
Yeah. But it's a solid list of artifacts. I think really there's only probably 1 in there that's bad. They
definitely do all have their uses. I think for me, if I had to take 1, I'd be taking the Silver-Plated Wand, I think.
Oh yeah, every time. Silver-Plated Wand every time. But I think, all bar probably the Amulet of Haste, I could see me doing different things with my army, with playing out different models.
Yeah, especially if you get an extra artifact anyway, and if you take the battalion, it's good that they give you options and they're not all trash, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be taking a lot. You're going to take half of these, almost certainly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. I really like that Griffin model. I love the Free Guild General on Griffin, and now I want to go get a wizard on Griffin just for the sake of it's not going to be the best thing in the book, but it's now possible to actually make that model do something.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I'm pretty sure he can get run and charge actually, because he has Wissen's Wild Form as his spell. Oh no, he's got the Amber Spear. He's got Amber Spear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, spell lore. This is pretty decent. I like their spell lore a lot. However, we need to talk about the first spell, because there are some very important things you need to do when casting this spell. So, first spell is Drain Magic, a amazing spell that people will remember from the days of old. Yeah. You just started up your little Warhammer Old World YouTube channel. You should definitely go check that out. I'll link that in the description of the video. But Drain Magic has a storied history.
Yeah, I can remember playing against armies that had Drain Magic quite a lot.
Yeah, I remember in 8th edition when my Wood Elves finally got it, and I was like, haha, this is awesome. Yeah. But Drain Magic in this, casting value of 6, which is okay. If successfully cast into your next hero phase, subtract 2 from casting Dispelling and Unbinding rolls for wizards within 12 inches of the caster. Now, note, that says wizards, so that is friend or foe.
Yeah. So it's definitely the spell that you want to cast last.
Yeah, that is the important thing to do. And you need to make sure you've put it on a wizard that is going to be moving up the battlefield.
Yeah.
So probably one of your wizard wagons are probably going to have this, or maybe Lore Seeker from Luminesce.
Yeah, because there's exactly, the Lore Seeker I think is the perfect option, and because there are so many Luminesce units that are also wizards, I think that gives you the option to play that up the table.
Oh wait. You can choose to roll for one of the only collegiate arcane wizards can take the spells, so the Lore Seeker can.
Okay. Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah. So probably
it's the same with the artifacts, isn't it? The artifacts would be so good
on Luminesce wizards.
Yeah, and the spell law would be really good as well. It's such a shame that they've chosen only to give it to them. But I suppose it does put the city's units front and center. I suppose though, which is something.
Yeah, which is what I guess is not a bad thing to want your city's unit to be the main thing.
Yeah.
But still, yeah. So you're probably at battle wagons. Maybe the wizard on Griffin could also have this as useful. You fly him up.
Yeah, actually, there as we go along, the wizard on Griffin does seem more tasty, I suppose.
Yeah, he's not the best, but I can see uses for him in the list.
Although you could just, I don't know. The thing is the base movement, isn't it? But you could have a wizard that is your general that flies, and then you can just move him up. Easier to cast that if you had that.
Yeah, so like the battle wagons with a flying hurricane.
Yeah. Another reason that you would you'd want to fight Halahar with this army. Yeah. That you can take the spell.
So then we've got Shield of Light, which is wholly within 12 inches of the caster, 60 cast, 6 up shrug. Decent.
Yeah.
Good solid spell. What I've noticed with a lot of this army is a lot of the units it's telling you to take as well. There's a lot of ability to get shrug saves in different places in your army with this. So you're not having to say normally with remember playing like Hallowheart, where you're generally tightly knit in a bunch to get all your buffs and auras, and Hallowheart sort of moves around as this blob of shooting troops, the screen, and wizards behind them, and it sort of just goes through the Soulstring Bridge as like this lump. What you can do with this is it's allowing you to take bubbles of troops, like to play with different parts of your army in different places, and still get your shrug buffs.
Yeah, and the last spell is Illuminate.
Yep.
This has a casting value of 6. If successfully cast, pick one enemy unit within 12 inches of the caster that is visible to them. Into your next hero phase, add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made with missile weapons that target that unit.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's decent. And you can, once again, combine that with a Hurricane, and you could be +2 to hit someone.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the battalion, and then we'll get into talking about where we think this has all pushed us, because so we'll talk about the Zintil War Magi, and then we'll talk a little bit about all the units we think we're being pushed to take for this. So Zintil War Magi is a battalion only for Settlers Gain. You need 1 Battle Mage, 1 Luminarch, 1 Celestial Hurricane with Battle Mage. Note that the Luminarch is not a wizard.
And also to note that the Battle Mage on his own is a named character, Arco Blade Lazerne.
Yep. So when you use the Searing Beam of Light from the Luminarch of Haste from this battalion, you can re-roll the roll to determine if a unit suffers D3 mortal wounds, because you have that Beam of Light that it shoots through units. In addition, when you use the Aura of Protection ability from the Luminarch in this battalion, you add 1 to the roll that determines if a wound or mortal wound is negated, giving you a 5-up shrug aura around it.
Yeah, I mean, that is fantastic, in my opinion.
Yeah. For me, I don't see myself playing this city without this battalion in it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's reasonably costed. I think it's 140 points. If I double check. 140 points. I'm pretty happy with that for 140 points.
Yeah, and I think we were chatting just briefly before we went live, and I was saying that I think this is one of the better battalions for Cities of Sigmar. I think in the Cities of Sigmar core book, there are battalions that I think are just not really worth their points, but this one I think you take all day.
Yeah. I see myself 9 times out of 10 taking this if I'm playing with this city.
Yeah.
What's cool is it gives you it's cool. Like, yes, you can't take any artifacts on that battle mage. That's fine because the Hurricaneum is a character as well, which isn't a named character in this battalion. So unlike things like Drusa Kraith, where you can't take an artifact on her, which really hurts her, this allows you to take an artifact on something in the battalion that's probably, and it's also made probably the guy you were not going to give an artifact to, the one that can't take it. Like, if you got the Hurricaneum or the normal battle mage on foot, I'm putting the artifact on the Hurricaneum.
Yeah. And can anybody say flying Hurricaneum?
Yep. Yeah. Because, and that's not actually a bad thing, because, a flying Hurricaneum, being able to deploy that +1 to hit where you need it, and also get those mortal wounds into range as well. The only downside for me is you can't make a flying Luminarch in this battalion, because Luminarchs are really cool. You could fly down your opponent's flank and laser beam them.
Yeah, maybe that's done deliberately.
Yeah,
for that reason, because that would be really OP.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. But so we've sort of talked about all the units and the stuff in this. Where do you see this pushing us? It's pretty obviously Collegiate Arcana where our hero points are being invested in the army.
Yeah, you also will want at least one Luminesce hero for the command ability.
Yeah.
To give yourself the 18-inch bubble of Battle Shock. I mean, this army is rock solid when you start to combine that. So you've got the Luminarch's got a 10-inch aura of protection, which is a 5-up shrug, and then you've got an 18-inch aura of no Battle Shock coming out. So you're pretty solid before you even start selecting your units just on those two. So I'd say those two are your starting point.
Yeah, and then you can add your Hurricaneum in. And what's cool is the Hurricaneum gives +1 to cast to Collegiate Arcane, and it itself is Collegiate Arcane. Therefore, everything around it is getting +2.
Yeah.
Which is solid. Now, so obviously, that sort of stuff, it's probably, if you're taking the Illuminate spell, which seems to be pretty good, you can combine it with a Hurricaneum. You're probably going to want a really good shooting unit in your army. To really maximize that.
I was thinking about that with the spell portal as well, just in case you wanted to get it somewhere further afield, because it's only a 12-inch range. So if you're looking to cast it, from wherever your wizard is, but you have empowered endless spells in this army with +2 to cast, you could chuck it through a spell portal.
Yeah, and that's really cool, being able to deploy it where you need it. Because obviously the Hurricaneum's buff is within range of the Hurricaneum, so you can have long-range shooting back with your Hurricaneum, throw a portal out to where you need it to be, cast Illuminate through that, and get your +2 to hit, which can be, pretty nasty. Any of the decent shooting units from cities, so things like Sisters of the Watch, Iron Drakes, both make really good use of that. Even handgunners or crossbowmen really start to take effect with that. Probably, I think it's crossbowmen have the longer range, don't they? Out of the two,
I was thinking Sentinels.
Yeah. I was going to get to the Luminesce stuff. Sentinels are definitely very good option.
Because if you've got the range outside of 12, I mean, Sentinels have potentially got a 30-inch range with their bows. Then you're given a +1 to hit from that, and then you get a +1 to hit from the Hurricaneum. All of a sudden, they're lofted shots. I think they normally hit on 4s, don't they? They're going to hit on 2s.
Yeah. With the mortal wound, because remembering they're still going to have their 5-up mortal wounds in this as well.
Yeah.
So
I think that becomes a great option.
Yeah, definitely. Now, obviously, it's pushing towards Free Guild Hero as well. So Free Guild units potentially with an option. A 5-up Shrug makes a lot of units decent. So I think even things like Free Guild Guard suddenly become pretty appealing at their points cost.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think it's important just to remind everybody that the command ability, the one that gives you the immune to Battle Shock, is only for Settlers Game Free Guild or Settlers Game Collegiate Arcane units. So
yeah,
that's the real push, isn't it? Like you said.
Yeah. So I think blocks of Free Guild Guard could definitely see a lot of decent output as like your holding line units, because they are 4-up save, and then they're going to have this 5-up shrug coming off the Luminarch. Like that's pretty solid.
A 4-up, 5-up is pretty much Phoenix Guard. You're one pip away on your shrug save from being a Phoenix Guard.
Yeah, effectively. And
a fraction of the points.
And they get +1 to hit as well. It's like they will actually be hitting at the same sort of rate as Phoenix Guard. No rends, though.
Yeah, I was thinking Great Swords.
Because
they've got the multiple output. They've got a 4+ save naturally. I think if you were going to put something out front that was going to slow people down or be difficult to chew through with your kind of buff wagons dealing the mortal wounds behind it, I think Great Swords are a good option.
Yeah, no, certainly. What other free good stuff do we have? Like even like Demigryph Knights could be like pretty decent.
Yeah, if you turn them all sideways, and lay them out in front of your war machines, then that'll do it. I think that's another thing to mention is that don't forget that your Luminarch with its 10-inch reach for its aura of protection, it doesn't have to go up the battlefield like this. It can shimmy up sideways, and then it gives you a little bit more space. Yeah,
certainly something to remember. I guess what other like free good units are that there's Pistoliers and Outriders are our last thing, which are shooting units.
Which tie in well with the spell that we like. So really, we're saying everything is a good option near enough.
Yeah, like I think it's obviously pushing you towards free guild units with Collegiate Arcane with some Lumineth added in is certainly what it's pushing you towards.
Yeah.
Do we see anything outside? I mean, besides Phoenix Guard? Phoenix Guard are good in every city regardless. Like there's Phoenix Guard are just a good war scroll, so they're good regardless where you put them.
I kind of feel like Phoenix Guard aren't so good in here because, like you said, the rule of one with the shrug save. If you're going to get a 5+ shrug save, or you've got a spell that gives something a 6+ shrug save, actually, are you going to pay the points for that extra shrug save when your army is giving you that for free anyway? You might not really fancy taking them and save your points and put it elsewhere. I think we spoke about Eternal Guard having a natural 3+ and being a battle line unit.
Yep. Even things like Dread Spears and Bleak Swords look pretty decent for the points cost. They're not going to get the Battle Shock immunity, but they're still... if you have a Sorceress in the army as well, but then again, she's not getting any buffs, so... but you can certainly make like a lot of things work with like the buffs you're getting. Like +2 to hit with shooting opens up the door for nearly any shooting unit in cities to be useful.
Yeah, I was thinking about the Hellstorm rocket battery because it normally hits on a 5. You don't see them like very often.
Yeah,
but they normally hit on a 5, so giving them something extra to hit on is useful.
Yeah, but I guess the thing I really want to talk about is Lumineth. All right, so this is where it really going to start getting interesting is what do Lumineth get out of this? Like if you're a Lumineth player, perhaps maybe coming over to this, like looking for something to dabble in. Because I think we talked a lot about how like this is great for cities players to go into something else. But it's also like stuff like this is also a great way for a Lumineth player or a Daughters of Cain player, a Sylvaneth player, a KO player to jump into cities as well.
Yeah.
And I've seen it talked about on like the Lumineth Facebook group of people going like, oh, I picked up a couple of cities units as well because I want to try out the other thing with my Lumineth. So
yeah, and you might have a box of Shadow Warriors or something like, or Sisters of the Thought, or Sisters of the Watch anyway, if you're an old high elf player coming to Lumineth.
So yeah, for Lumineth, like the things this is different than Lumineth. Obviously, it's not quite so dominant in the Magic phase. It's good, but it depending on who you bring in. But I think this gives you bodies and gives you more tools for the points than what Lumineth have.
Yeah, I think I agree. You know, when I was looking at some of the new units and things, you're looking at Blade Lords and they come in units of 5 and things like that, like you said, bodies with a shrug save. So I think it does add something that army is missing. There definitely is not going to be a horde unit or a unit, you know, it's going to be rare to see 30 of anything in a Lumineth army, but you quite easily do that in a Cities army.
Yeah. So it's going to give you options as a Luminesce player to play something a little bit different than what you're normally used to. Now, I think Luminesce units you would consider bringing in. We talked about the Sentinels.
Yeah. For their range and for their mortal wound output, I think definitely you would consider those.
Yeah, because like the thing with this is you're probably at max just because Luminesce do cost points to bring in. I think you're going to see 2 Luminesce units max in this army.
Would you bring, Luke, the big man himself?
I think Teclis has play. Like, Teclis with empowered endless spells is good. Like, yeah, okay, he loses access to that wide pool of magic he has in Luminesce. But his War Scroll spells are good. The 3 spells... Oh, wait, no, he can't gain any of this. So that is the big thing, is that you're basing it off his power of his War Scroll spells and endless spells.
But his aura of protection, I guess, may be negated because you're already getting it through other means. Yeah, or you could take it as another aura of protection. Yeah,
and I think that if you're playing that particular style army, I think Teclis comes in the army if you're not playing with the battalion. He's an option besides the battalion. But like Teclis being able to put out like an empowered spell portal to put his spell where he wants it, that really big, powerful mortal wound output spell he has. If he can put that where he wants it, like that's really good. Or being able to throw out empowered endless spells where you need them can be quite good as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you would choose either the battalion or Teclis, and I would lean towards the battalion personally, but that's not to say it wouldn't be really cool to play with Teclis with empowered endless spells running around.
Yeah, I think it'd just be fun to like go, I'm going to cast this endless spell this turn, and good luck. And just every turn. I mean, you can only take 3 now, but that's probably why I don't play Hallowheart as much anymore. I used to like taking like the 7 endless spell Hallowheart list.
Again, this is the answer to Hallowheart, isn't it? Because you could have an auto unbind from Teclis against Hallowheart, and then you cast your own Soul Screen Bridge, and you're like, well, you can't dispel it.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. But like that does give play. Like the ability to cast Soul Screen Bridge automatically is pretty strong with Teclis, because it can mean like that plus like a Collegiate Arcane Wizard casting Illuminate and a Hurricaneum in the list. Yeah, that's probably close to 1,000 points, but then you're going to get another 1,000 points of shooting into your enemy, and there's nothing they can do about it.
Yeah.
Like all of that would be 2 casts from Teclis. He casts Ambush Spell Portal, and the other wizard gets all these buffs off and is casting Illuminate. You could pin them right at the backfield so your opponent can't touch them. Soul Screen Bridge with 24-inch and move 90 free guild handgunners into your opponent's army and just go, good day, sir.
Yeah. That'd be really nice. I think with the Soul Screen Bridge, it does open up the other. So I went straight for the Venari when I was thinking about shooting and thinking about bringing Sentinels. But then once you bring the Soul Screen Bridge into play, and then being, the empowered endless spells with +2 to cast even before you think about Teclis, it does bring in, the handgunners and other units and makes them much more playable. I'm quite excited for this, to be honest. This city, I think it's just got a lot of, like you said, compared to the other ones that kind of you can only take this, you can only take that. This does open up quite a lot of options.
Yeah, and I think that's where it doesn't seem as limiting as like I compare it to like Misthaven, because like Hakurun is limiting to the extreme where it's Dark Elf and it's only Dark Elf. But like Misthaven, you can take anything you want in Misthaven, but you have to have a unit of Free Guild or Dispossessed on the table for every Order Serpentis Shadowblade in reserve. It very, very strongly shoehorns you down that line, where this is just sort of gently nudging you in a particular direction, but also allowing you to bring your friends along to the play.
What other units would you consider taking from the Luminesce?
I mean, Blade Lords are good, especially when I was looking at like them and Greatswords. Like the thing I like about cities is cities can be a really good toolbox as an army. You can have lots of different things in a city's army, and I think Blade Lords do something that not a lot of cities units do, potentially at a cheaper cost than, say, the only unit that really comes close to them, which is Decimators from Stormcast. I think that ability to clear hordes could be one of the things that this city particularly lacks. I think with the points you're spending in battle mages and stuff like that, and the war wagons, you're going to be pretty light on... You're going to have some really good, powerful units, but you're going to be lacking in the ability to clear, like, 60 grots. And that's where I think, like, maybe a unit of Blade Lords, either 5 or 10, could really come in handy.
Yeah. Yeah, they'd be really great for that. I think that is where the Blade Lords really shine. I think their Perfect Strike is good, but it's 1 attack, 1 damage, and then if you've got 5 of them, they're a little bit... For me, the Blade Lords are a little bit situational, but like you said, against hordes and other armies like goblins and skeletons and stuff like that, I mean, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
I think I'd take a Lore Seeker potentially, just because. Why wouldn't you take a Lore Seeker?
Yeah, he's sort of... It's like I was talking about Phoenix Guard before. He's just a good war scroll.
Yeah.
But other Lumineth, like... I'm trying to think. Is there really any other Lumineth I think I would take? I really do think... I don't really think there's many others I would take, in all honesty. I mean, the Kangaroo Riders have their use just for, once again, their War Scroll ability.
Yeah, I think the Lore Seeker is the option because he's the hero, and you need the hero for the command ability. So I think he's the go-to for that. I wouldn't necessarily discount Eliana and Elithor to take as a hero because you've got to take a hero. Yeah.
Yeah, and once again, this gives you the option to move away from that adjutant potentially because you don't have to take Strategic Mastermind if they're part of the army. You could then take Fly on your Hurricanum in addition to Eliana and Elithor.
I think they're just a really, like you said, they're just another War Scroll that is just really good. And if you're going to have to take a hero, then that's a good one to take.
Yeah. I think units I probably wouldn't take is I definitely don't see me ever taking the what is he called? The Warden or whatever he is, the Venari leader dude, because he buffs 3 units of Venari. You're never ever going to have 3 units of Venari in this army.
Yeah.
Someone saying in the chat, Severeth is another good shout.
Yeah. I think
once again, all based on War Scroll.
Yeah, he's great, and the movement is just really good for this army because, like you said, this kind of will play a bit like your Hollow Heart army, where you're going to have your bus kind of clumped together, and you're going to want something that is going to be able to move around and do some damage and get around the table. I mean, one of the reasons why I think you should take the Lore Seeker, but also Sivereth has got a 24-inch move, so if you need to get somewhere, they're going to do it.
Yeah, not just that, but he's getting all the shooting buffs as well. He already hits on 2s, I think, doesn't he? Anyway.
They're almost for Luminesce. I know that we removed the whole hit phase for the Blade Lords, but it feels like I'm just looking through the book now. It feels like they might as well have got rid of it for half of it. To be honest, there's a lot of hitting on 3s and 2s.
Yeah. All right. So last thing I want to round this out. What about Stormcast? Do we see any Stormcast play in this city? Because you still get the 1 in 4 Stormcast. While we're not getting any buffs, like, is there play for any Stormcast at all?
I think there is play for Stormcast. I think there's a space for the Humble Liberator.
Yeah.
I think you know more than anyone in your recent events and videos on the channel how defensive a Liberator can be.
There's 60 up there. Yeah, like 90 points for a 4-up save, rerolling 1s and 10 wounds is pretty decent. Like Judicated, like shooting units, bring them in. Judicators could be quite good, or even Vanguard Raptors.
Yeah,
could be quite solid unit, and not necessarily if we're talking like the Soul Scream Bridge route. Potentially the Hurricane crossbows with like the 9 shots apiece.
Yeah, they'd be
just
really nice.
Weight of firepower.
I think when I looked at this, I have to say it didn't really scream Stormcast at me, which I think is, from a design point of view, is really good because the city is run by the Luminesce and it's a city army. There isn't from what I understand from the lore, there isn't a big Stormcast presence there.
Yeah, there's no Stormkeep in the city. It's more there's some Stormcast here and there.
Yeah, and when I looked at it, like I said, no units kind of were jumping out at me straight away, other than the ones that get in on their own merit just for being good units.
Yeah.
So I think there are, like I said, there are options, and there's always options through Good War Scrolls. There's options, like you said, because you want something defensive that might go in front of your Luminarch and Hurricanum. But there's nothing that really screams at me, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for Stormcast, you could say the one unit that I take in most cities' armies now, Aetherwings. So there's two reasons. First of all, like, everyone talks about like Aetherwings. I had this question put when like one of the battle reports, and someone's like, "Oh, you're taking Aetherwings without Vanguard Raptors. You get none of the benefits." I'm like, no. I'm still getting all my benefits with my Aetherwings. They're what are they? 12, 14-inch move with fly for 40 points. The amount of points those models get me every game is more than you think. Like, I win games with Aetherwings. Like, either keeping them reserved to late game and just jumping around the board late game, or not only that, but if you're trying to get that extra units of Luminesce in your army, a 40-point unit of Aetherwings could get you there. For one, it's a useful unit to have in your army, but two, it's also rather cheap, so it's getting you there on a good budget. You know, say there's no way you can find that 7th unit to get that second Luminesce. Could you do it with 40 points?
Yeah, I think they're definitely the cheapest option available. I was thinking the Black Ark Fleetmaster is like 60, isn't he?
Yeah,
but he doesn't have the functionality. Like he has his use in his specific faction, but like you said, Aetherwings are just useful altogether.
Yeah. So I think in any city, Aetherwings are a decent shout if you're playing. That is the one thing I found when like playing Harkuron compared to Anvilguard. I'm like, I actually miss my Aetherwings. But I guess other things like, yeah, for me, that's it. I mean, the Celestia Prime is always decent. That could give you some really decent combat punch, to be fair, which maybe you might be lacking.
Yeah, like you said, it's all basically down to the War Scroll. The core of this army is going to be Collegiate Arcane with 3 guild being run alongside them, and then 1 or 2 Luminesce heroes probably, and maybe unit Sentinels.
Yeah, I think probably for me the list is probably the battalion, a unit of Sentinels, a Law Seeker, and 3 guild to fill out the army.
Yeah.
So do you have any like closing thoughts on this?
My thoughts are, like, the more that I read about it and the more I get into it, the more I want to play with it. It is really making me. I was talking to I was doing a bit of hobby with my mates the other day over Zoom, and I was just like, I'm just reading this in preparation for today, and I was like, I really want to buy this battalion. It's just it does seem really fun. It does have some cool options. I don't think it's going to be top tier, but if you're a Cities player that's looking to get into Luminesce, I think this is a great way to go. Yeah,
or even you just want to buy a couple of Luminesce units. I mean, they're really pretty to paint. You could definitely get it. And I mean, the Law Seeker is probably the model that I think is one of the most popular in the range, so he fits in pretty well in the army.
Yeah, and I think, they're not going to be supremely dominant in the Magic phase compared to some others that you will see, but they're definitely going to hold their own. They've definitely got some really good buffs in there, and I think they're definitely going to offer some surprises for your opponent with the shenanigans with the empowered and the spells.
Yeah, and I think what's cool, like you're talking about the buffs, like out of all the buffs we talked about, there was one like combo we probably went on a little bit about that involved magic as an actual thing, and that was the +2 to hit. I mean, you're still going to be +1 to hit even if you don't get that spell off, and you're still going to be +2 to cast. you're still going to have a 5-up aura. It doesn't need anything to work. So I think that is like a good thing for it. I guess the last thing to sort of chat about today is we've now seen a Shadow and a Haish, like an Orgu and a Haish thing. And obviously we've already got Gairan and Akshi. And I guess we technically have Shaiish if we want to include Lethis as that sort of prototype city thing that it was. But do you want to see more cities come out in Broken Realms, or just in general, like White Dwarf articles, whatever?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think the more the better, really. The reason for that is that it just... Cities are the in, a kind of like for... It's difficult to kind of explain how I feel about them. I was watching Friends on Netflix earlier, and like Chandler is the character who's the in. He's the one who sees it kind of through your eyes. When people are doing stuff that is crazy, he's kind of like, he's the one who knows that that it's crazy, if you know what I mean. And Cities of Sigmar are the army where they are the men in amongst all the madness. And I think it's really great to see things through the eyes of your free guild guard and your free guild generals, because ultimately they're mortal men in this crazy world. And the more of that we get to see, it's the more that we'll be able to kind of explore the realms and learn more about what's going on. I think it's great, and it's just more and more options for players to be able to take more cool models that they like.
Yeah, definitely. I think the thing with cities is it's one of those ones, like I looked at armies with similar range sizes, so Skaven and Stormcast come to mind more than anything. And you look at cities and you're just like, I have so many more ways to play. Like, I don't think there's a unit in cities I haven't thought of a way to run. And I'm including Dark Riders in that list.
The only thing about getting all these cities, it just makes me worried for the writers of the next battle tome, because at the moment it's kind of sort of where we are. It's kind of so thick, but we're gonna. I mean, this has got the cities that it's got in it. I mean, what are we going to end up at? How are we going to go?
Yeah, and there looks like there's a lot more coming for cities, but we will get to that in a whole nother show in a couple of weeks once we hopefully maybe know a little bit more about that. But I think that's all really we've got to talk about today. We've pretty much covered, I think, the entirety of Settlers Gain. I think there's much more to talk about. So with that said, thank you all for watching. If you'd like to help support the channel via Patreon and YouTube members, those are down in the description of the video. Thank you to everyone who already does. And stay safe, everyone. Stay well. And most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.